everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. With that said, I do want to talk college hoops, and I do want to get into the news of the week, and that is that on Monday, we got our first AP poll of the 2023-2024 college hoop season. Want to go through, want to react, want to share some thoughts, but a couple things. One, this year I'll say I don't think there's like anything super egregious that pollsters got wrong. Last year, and I said it on this show, there were a couple big misses. UConn, believe it or not, was not ranked. Now, I didn't think they were going to go on to win a national championship, but I thought they were somewhere in like the 12 to 15 to 20 range. Completely unranked. I ended up being right about that. I also said when the first poll came out, Texas A&M should be in there. By the way, that tweet is available. I'm not making it up. But I said Texas A&M should be ranked. They end up finished second in the SEC. So I don't know that there's anything super egregious, but let's get into it and let's just kind of rip through some thoughts. And then I actually want to share some of your thoughts because we got a lot of tweets on this as well. Here's the first AP top 25. Kansas at number 1. Duke at number 2, Purdue at number 3, Michigan State number 4, Marquette 5, UConn 6, Houston 7, Creighton 8, Tennessee 9, Florida Atlantic 10. We'll give you some other notables from throughout the top 25. I'm not going to go through everybody, but Florida Atlantic is 10, as I said. Gonzaga all the way down at number 11. I think they were preseason number 2 a year ago. Arizona at number 12. They're the highest ranked Pac-12 team. Arkansas at 14, Kentucky at 16. This one's interesting. This is the lowest that Kentucky has been in a preseason poll since John Calipari took over. North Carolina, 19. USC, no Bronny James as of right now at 21. Villanova at 22. Alabama, the reigning SEC champs, at 24. Illinois rounding out the top 25. Some notables that missed the cut. St. John's, my boy Big Rick Energy, Rick Pitino. UCLA with a bunch of interesting international players, Memphis, Kansas State, who of course is coming off an Elite Eight appearance, and my boy Mike Effin Woodson, Indiana, getting just 3 votes in total. So first off, like I said, I don't think there's anything super egregiously wrong with this poll. Top 5 was actually essentially what I had coming out of the summer. I would have Duke at number 1 if I had a vote. Listen, I think they're just as talented as Kansas with much more returning talent. Remember Kyle Filipowski, Tyrese Proctor, Jeremy Roach, Mark Mitchell, all back from last season. Proctor, Mitchell, and Filipowski all could have been potentially first-round picks. End of the first round, early second round, they decided to come back. So I would have had Duke number 1. Purdue at number 3. You know, listen, I still think Purdue is limited. I don't think you can win a national championship with those guards, but they're going to win a ton of games. Zach Edey's the reigning national player of the year. I think they're justified at 3. Tennessee at number 9, I like. UConn at number 6, I think is fair. And so again, bluntly, there's not a lot that I really have a gripe with. Why I bring it up is this. What I decided to do was rather than get on here and yell and scream and rant and rave, I went ahead and put out the poll. And I asked you guys and girls on Twitter, I said, what are your big gripes? What are your big reactions to the poll? And so I want to read some of them because I think they're very interesting. And I want to react and kind of share some thoughts based on what you guys are fired up about. So first off, a lot of reaction to Kentucky being at number 16, okay? Maxwell Forrest tweets in, there aren't 15 more talented teams than Kentucky. Length, athleticism, shooting, and something they lacked in the last several years, rim protection. They have a higher ceiling floor than probably 10 teams ranked higher. Also, always on the mind, said Kentucky being ranked, assuming it's the same roster as Global Jam. That was the event they played in Toronto. They've added 3 7-footers to the party. So let's start with Kentucky. Let me start by saying this. I actually agree with you guys and girls. I think Kentucky is probably a little bit better than the rankings. Now, listen. I understand where the pollsters are coming from. I think in my final poll, I had them about 12, 13, somewhere in that range. But what I will say is I actually like this Kentucky group a lot. And a couple things stand out. One, I know what everyone will say. Kentucky's all freshmen. You can't win with freshmen in college basketball in 2023, 2024. Well, that's just not true. Do you remember who spent most of the year at number 1 last year? It was Alabama. You realize that Alabama, 3 of their top 6 scorers were freshmen: Brandon Miller, Noah Clowney, and Jaden Bradley. You can argue it, you can debate it. If your freshmen are good enough, you can win in college basketball. 2, and it's interesting because Zach and I already did the SEC preview for later in the week, but I think the other thing that stands out to me about Kentucky is I do think something like struck me watching them play in Toronto, okay? I love Oscar Tshiebwe. He was great for college basketball, National Player of the Year 2 years ago, all SEC last year. But watching Kentucky play their summer trip to Toronto, that was the Global Jam that one of the listeners just referenced, something stood out. As great as Oscar Tshiebwe was, you were kind of pretty limited as to what you could potentially do with him in the lineup. When Oscar was in the lineup, all the offense has to run through him. You're limited on defense. We saw teams like Alabama put him in pick and rolls, and he's limited defensively. And so to watch Kentucky in their trip to Toronto, you could see that bluntly, it was just a completely different team that was going to play a completely different style and a much more modern style with this group of guys. Loved what I saw. I know people will say the competition isn't great, but DJ Wagner, their starting point guard, is a future lottery pick. Rob Dillingham is probably a first-round pick, another freshman. Justin Edwards is another lottery pick on the wing. They have guard play, they have spacing, they have three-point shooting, and then to the point that the listener made, they have 3 7-footers that all essentially play the style of play that Kentucky wants to play going forward. And so only one of them is healthy right now. Aaron Bradshaw, Nagana, and Yenso are coming back from injury. But I just bring it up to say I like this team and I like how it's constructed. As I said, I don't think I realized how limited Kentucky was with Oscar Tshiebwe. As great as he had a lot of positives. But I do think that there were some negatives that with him that limited that team. I think this team's going to surprise some people. Good news is the schedule is not easy, but it's manageable early. They play Kansas in the Champions Classic, North Carolina later in the season, and then Gonzaga and out-of-conference play much, much, much later. But I bring it up because I think there's chances to pick up wins. Should mention they also play Miami at Rupp Arena as part of the ACC-SEC Challenge. But I like this team. I think the schedule breaks nicely for them to get off to a hot start. And I think they're going to be better than they've been in recent years. Let's keep it going with some of your other tweets. This one I like to. Razor Smacks, who's obviously an Arkansas fan, he tweeted one word: disrespectful. Disrespectful to the Arkansas Razorbacks, who are ranked in this first AP Top 25 at number 14 overall. Let me say this. Much like Kentucky, this feels a little low. I think I had Arkansas at about number 10, number 11 in my final preseason poll. But there's some things to work through, right? One, Trevin Brazile, probably their best player, is coming back from major injury. And 2, you're dealing with all sorts of transfers, whether it's L. Ellis from Louisville, whether it's Khalif Battle from Temple, Tremont Mark from Houston, etc. At the same time, there is no one that I trust inherently to get this team in position to have success throughout the season more than Eric Musselman. Listen, he has that John Calipari mold to him of he is a guy that give him any group of guys, he is going to figure out how to make it work over the course of the season. I go back to 2 years ago when they made the Elite Eight, they ended up losing to Duke, but there was a kid named Trey Wade on that roster that was barely playing early, middle of the season. Coach Muss puts him in the starting lineup. All of a sudden, team takes off like gasoline, and they're basically unbeatable the second half of the year. And so I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but I think you look at the depth, the athleticism, there's improved three-point shooting with Jeremiah Davenport, a transfer from Cincinnati who I didn't even mention. Tremont Mark, I believe, is one of the best defensive wings in all of college basketball. I like this team, and I like how the pieces fit. Devo Davis is going to be your point guard. L. Ellis is going to be your scorer on the wing. Tremont Mark's going to be your wing defender. You have size with Jalen Graham, size with Bay Fall, a true freshman. Trevin Brazile, the 7-footer who jumps like he's 6'3", like 40-inch vert. So I'm excited about this team. I think as you get Trevin Brazile back in that lineup, it's going to take a little bit of time, but I'm with you. I think Arkansas has the ceiling of a top 5 team. Like, they're good enough to make a Final Four. Let's call a spade a spade. Good enough to make a Final Four, like Arkansas, like what they're about. Let's keep it going with some of your other comments. This tweet came in from Pinto Beaner. He says USC is better than number 21 and Colorado should be in the top 25. Arizona will be in the top 5 after the first couple weeks, perhaps after defeating Duke. So for people who don't know, first major game of the college hoop season, Arizona at Duke, the first Friday night of the year. So I think it's 3 Fridays from now. Clear your schedule, tell your wife, tell the kids, hey, we're watching a little Zona Duke at Cameron Indoor, baby. First of all, I love Arizona. Love Arizona. My only concern with Arizona, not a ton of three-point shooting, but they are much more athletic. Keyshawn Johnson, the transfer from San Diego State, tripped my mind there for a sec. I think he's one of the most underrated players in college basketball going into this year. Really, really, really athletic kid. Not a great three-point shooter, but he can defend, he can rebound, he can switch, he can cause all sorts of chaos down low. Umar Ballo, big physical down low. And then the guards can all get to the rim. Caleb Love, remember, he is at Arizona. Jaden Bradley, transfer from Alabama. This Arizona team, I think, is fun, fast, athletic. Kylan Boswell is back for another year. They are rightly a top 15 team. Are they going to win at Duke? I don't know that I'm ready to predict that, but I don't think it's out of the question. But they're going to give Duke fits, I can tell you that much, and they should be the favorites in the Pac-12. Pinto Beaner also says USC at 21 is too low. I don't know if I agree with that. Now, their backcourt is incredible. Boogie Ellis is a fifth-year guy, started at Memphis, transferred to USC. And then Isaiah Collier, an All-American freshman, is in for the Trojans at point guard. The concerns are depth, right? You lose a couple key players from last year. Trey White transferred to Louisville. Reese Dixon Waters transferred to San Diego State. And obviously the health of Bronny James. You hope he's okay. We know he's okay. But is it realistic to expect him to play this year? I don't know. I think 21 feels about right for USC. And I'll be honest, the last one he mentioned, he mentioned Colorado being ranked. I guess I don't really see it. And maybe this is one I'm just wrong on. But like, when has Colorado been not ranked and it was an egregious misstep? Like, it's something that has never happened in my life covering college basketball. I think they're a good program, a lot of experience coming back, but I think they're a clear number 4 in the Pac-12 behind Arizona, USC, and UCLA. In terms of teams that I think should have been ranked that weren't, St. John's is one. St. John's, in my opinion, is a top 25 team. Jordan Dingle, the point guard, transfer from Penn, is phenomenal, was the second leading scorer in college basketball last year. Joel Soriano, the center, is a stud. He just didn't get enough credit because he played for St. John's and nobody watched St. John's before they had Rick Pitino as the head coach. So you have those two guys. I like the pieces around them. A couple guys came with Pitino from Iona. That's a top 25 in my opinion, top 25 team in my opinion. 3rd, 4th in the Big East, or probably 4th. Those 3 teams in the Big East in the top 10, UConn, Creighton, and Marquette, I believe are accurate. I think you can pick them in any order. All 3 are really good. Also in the top 25, I would have Memphis. Memphis added a bunch of old guys in the portal this offseason. Javon Quinterly, 6th-year player, started his career at Villanova, then at Alabama. How about the name Jordan Brown? Started playing for Eric Musselman at Nevada, then transferred to Arizona, then transferred to Louisiana Lafayette. Now he's back at Memphis. They have some other good pieces around them. Memphis is a top 25 team, in my opinion. Last team I want to talk about, too, very briefly. I actually like North Carolina. And we've talked about this a lot in the offseason. But North Carolina is ranked at number 19. They are the 3rd ACC team behind only Duke and Miami. I think they're going to be good. And what I would say is, and listen, I get it. First of all, Hubert Davis, you really kind of go through his track record at North Carolina. He basically has had 2 good months in 2+ years as the head coach. First year, they struggled out of the gate. They get hot, make the Final Four, play for a national championship. Last year, they struggled. But they have a lot of guys back. Armando Bacot, RJ Davis, added some nice pieces in the portal. Harrison Ingram, Paxton Wojcik, Cormac Ryan, 3-point shooter. And then the freshman Elliot Cadeau, people are raving about. But I think more importantly, and I've talked about this a lot over the summer, it feels as though the messaging out of North Carolina has been, blame Caleb Love. Essentially, this was all Caleb Love's fault. The reason we stunk last year was Caleb Love. I don't know if it's fair. I don't know if it's unfair. I think maybe it was just best for both parties to go their own way, right? I think Caleb Love is going to be good at Arizona because I know because I believe he knows that he's kind of out of options. But at the same time, I think it'll be good for him, and I think it'll be good for North Carolina. I think I think they're a top 15 team by the end of the year. I think I had them, a little under 19. I think I had them 16, 17, but I think they're a very good team.